Good on you. Jules and Myrtle have joined, but I'd like to give Connor a little bit of a chance before we move to them, because I know they're going to take some time. They've got a lot to say, but Connor, from the voice of a Born Free, how are you feeling at this time? What do you see for the future?
Well, it's been a really interesting ride for me and Josh, my partner at JTC, and Simon, who came on later, in that I feel like we're kind of the bridge right now. We've had the great privilege of being alongside you and Jules and Myrtle and going through these court cases with you and learning a huge amount fresh out of high school, So it's really kind of screwed our heads on right, in that we're rooted in activism and the sort of ethics of the industry. But at the same time, we do have, we're also rooted in capitalism, right? We want to build an industry, we want to create business, and we want to grow the economy. So I think it's given us a great balance to really share the right information to the youth, to get the right information out there. And yeah, we just hope that it continues to grow. And we post a video every single week, every single Thursday, where we just sort of share those thoughts, and we encourage people to get involved. And
what's your page?
We Joint Cannabis Consultants on Instagram.
I'll check y'all out. I really like what you're doing. You summed it up really nicely, because I do the same thing. I'm a business strategist now, brand strategist, and it's a good thing when you can pick the brands you want to deal with because of the morals that they have. You know what to look for. You know the small tells, and say, okay, this company probably has the balls to go out and actually change something. They're forward thinking. They're innovative. They're whatever they're going to be. But you know which brands not to work with. Which can ruin your brand anyway, right? And
totally.
Some people get kind of tilted when you start talking about brand, and a lot of people have the wrong idea of what brand means. And it's like, there's brands that have changed the world. If you're going to have a big platform and you use it responsibly, you're going to kill it, right? But you have to develop a big platform. You can't do that just sitting on your ass. Activism has gone like war now, where it's gone like to almost a digital front, right? But they control that too. So it's like, being able to stay on top of your game, continued education, and the whole nine. I just think it's dynamite. You summed it up real well. And the fact that you're rooted, like I said, I spent 6 months on the road backpacking to different farmers before I even thought about talking about opening up a shop at all, period. And just making sure I knew everything I could. So if I gave anybody any bad information, I wouldn't, because it would never happen. You know what I mean? It was all applied knowledge. And so power be to you, big time. I'm actually going to start using Born Free, just because that sounds like something I am. So I got your beard, I got your beard, I got your phrase, and his hair. What can I get over here from Jules and Miles? So introduce yourself, and let's see. Tell us about your shows, honestly. Happy 420.
Happy 420, brother.
Jules and Myrtle. I'll do a short intro. The hardest working couple in cannabis, in my mind. They've been non-stop for the last over 10 years, since they were terrorized in the middle of the night. I'm sure they'll tell you a bit of their story, but just continuing to fight the hardest, because of where they are. They're the ones that get the emails every Monday morning from countless people saying, please help us, arrested on the weekend, please help us, son's in jail, please help, please help. And because of that, again, as I mentioned earlier, this deep compassion that this plant gives us, they've been cultivating in themselves and taking on that energy to really help as many people, and have chosen the route of saying the core of this what we have to stop more than ever is this harm of the war on drugs, on the collateral damage of people's lives getting destroyed, for choosing to use this bit of nature in whatever way. So I love them both dearly, and I'll let them take it away from here.
Oh, thank you, Tony. You're too kind.
Very kind.
So I'm Myrtle Clarke, and this is Jules Stobbs, and we are known popularly as the Dakta couple. And we also have an NGO called Fields of Green for All, and we are based in Johannesburg, South Africa. And you've already been speaking to two of our team members, Connor and Tony, who's one of our expert witnesses for the trial of the plant. Because in case you don't know, in 2017, well, in 2011, we took the South African government to court We had a part of our trial in 2017 and it's still ongoing, but that's a hell of a long story. So somebody was saying earlier that, you know, that the cannabis industry has become virtually online. We must say that we've just done a little live Facebook video. That's why we joined a little bit late. And we really, really miss everybody. You know, we've just come back from Europe and we had the most awesome time seeing everybody who was there at the United Nations and was there for the cancelled Cannabis in Barcelona. And we're still in contact with everybody, but we really just feel the need for those hugs. So, so we're sending lots of virtual hugs to everybody who's watching out there. And thank you for welcoming us from South Africa into your homes.
Tony was very kind with his introduction of me because I am also AKA known as Mr. Grumpy. Because sometimes I'm sick to death of it. I'm sick to death of crawling along at a snail's pace when we won the intellectual argument 100 years ago. And we now see with prohibition of cigarettes and alcohol in South Africa with the lockdown, it's chaos out there. There are people with pickaxes breaking through the walls of bottle stores to get hold of ethanol. So that's happened in 10 days, 2 weeks that's happened. So they're extending it for weeks, you know. They cannot see further than their moral judgments at the moment, as usual. So I get a little bit sick of it. This is my... her glass is always more than half full and mine is just dipping on the half empty sometimes. I'm a bit battle weary with having to deal with the dicks that you have to meet that think that they know all about this plant because they're in power and they don't even use the plant. You know, those guys, the amount of time, I'm getting sick of arguments with people who don't use weed is what I'm saying.
Those are the people they're the weed explainers.
Yeah.
Weed explainers, the non-smokers that tell us what they think we need to hear from them. It's a load of bullshit, these weed.
One joint, they would change their whole tune. One joint, they would change their whole tune.
Yeah,
You're right.
One small scare in a hospital where you've been diagnosed with something that you might have, and then you know that it could alleviate your condition, and then all of a sudden you realize it actually alleviates the whole condition. It rounds the edges off nicely. We don't know what we'd do without it. We're very blessed to have a garden full of it because that's how it is. We grow weed. We always did. We always will. And one day the cops told me I couldn't. And I just couldn't take them seriously in any form. So we took them to court and here we are. And now we've got this inalienable right to grow cannabis pretty much en masse at the moment. There is no limitation. The judge just said, go home and grow. You should be able to grow it. It's your plot. It's your land. It's your brain. It's your couch. It's your life. So we've yet to get the government to agree to that. I don't know whether Tony's touched on any of how it is in South Africa at the moment, but we've got a few months. We've got a few months until the government has to make a decision on exactly what the bullet points of a new paradigm will be in law, because the judge said change the law. So we wait with bated breath, but I don't think it's going to end well unless, as the Time for Help and Demand, the gentleman from America, I think he was. Won't help unless activism carries on, because the minute you get complacent, it stops. And at the moment, I feel as if I'm being a bit complacent, and Myrtle she's the stalwart at the moment. And I'd just like to thank you online to the whole world that thank fuck for you doing this at the moment. You have your ups and downs, you know, and at the moment it's like I'm a bit overwhelmed with what bad timing all of this was, because we were so close. And now 4 billion people are in their houses. It's fucking bizarre.
Yeah,
I think as stoners and activists and trying to do the really, really serious business of changing the law and keeping going, you've got to pay attention to detail, because it's so easy for people to call you a stupid stoner. So easy to say the wrong thing, or like I swore on national TV because I lost it with the reporter, you know, and that was kind of like my Twitter moment, and I've never been able to forget it.
It's a classic.
It's still funny though. So I think that sort of attention to detail in our daily lives is so important to stoners, to be this like shining light. And then it's also a good excuse to use lots of cannabis, because I find that cannabis really focuses me on the details. So I get to be a serious stoner, and I get to get through the work that we've got to just keep going every day. You know, we haven't got a choice. And thank goodness we've got this plant that we love so much.
I like you. She's awesome. You know that? Good wife you got there, man. You got a winner.
No, yeah, completely. It took me 11 to find this one, but you know.
hey, marrying up is marrying up. You know what I'm saying? That's all we call it here. And so, way to get a win in. Cheers to you. Your 420 is great.
She's a keeper, Jules.
If you got any other models like that laying around anywhere, let me know. I need one. So,
you know,
it's all good.
We've been told we complement each other in the way we kind of say things because I've got to my age where I don't need to suffer fools anymore. And sometimes I've just been quoted verbatim in an article by John Veit for Canamo in Argentina. And it's massive. It's a 7,000 word epic with photos and video that goes with it that we did in Barcelona on the days of lockdown. And you know what, when I get going, I can't believe half the stuff I say because the more I smoke, the more I say it and it all just comes out. And I've been quoted saying the craziest things in that article. I don't remember saying half of it. So if this ends up being like that, I do apologize in advance.
Hey guys, what's a Dakta driver?
Oh, you're looking at we've got this collection of newspaper headlines that they have on the lamp posts going down the main drags. And we've been collecting them for all the 10 years of our activism. So Dakta is the South African colloquial word for cannabis. So it actually, Dakta comes from the Khoisan, who are First Nations people, the Khoi and the San. Our First Nations people, they called it Dakta, but it was kind of bastardized by the apartheid government to sound awful, like Dakta. So we love the word, that's why we call it the Dakta couple. So Dakta drivers is soon after our Constitutional Court judgment, there were 40 drivers who 300. There were 300 drivers who lost their jobs due to testing in the workplace. And it was a big courier company, I think, or a big transport company, and they tested everybody and they fired 300 drivers. And unfortunately, the private use and personal cultivation judgment that we just got just never managed to get them their jobs back. So we often think about those 300 people who lost their jobs right after we got the most amazing news. So Dakta is, yeah, it's a very emotive word in South Africa, but it's what we use the most, along with probably hundreds of other colloquial terms for cannabis. We've actually got one of our t-shirts has got a map of Africa.
Farid's wearing it now.
Nobody's wearing it. There.
Farid's on, and I think he's wearing the shirt.
Oh, well, maybe Farid can show me his shirt. So there's 55 different ways of saying cannabis in African languages that we know of. Amazing diversity.
Yeah, Farid's showing the shirt. You got to unmute so you'll come on speaker view, Farid.
So we got a panel. We got a panel of doctors here in a little bit. So we got use this room. We got them coming on in like 2 minutes. They're going to start gathering here. But and it's actually terrible, but it's a great problem to have, right? It's like I got the A-class lineup of all time. It's like, oh, we got another A-class lineup of all time. It's like, who has 2 A-class lineups of all time? Nobody. And so before we go, I wanted to show you guys something special. This is what I've been doing on my spare time. So I figured, you know, it's look, everybody should get some of this. Yoga's kind of been my thing. I'm about 2 weeks in right now, and it's been pretty ridiculous. And so I just wanted to just offer you guys up this little bit of niceness right here, this little bit of goodness, and maybe even get some critique if you guys have any skill sets that I might need to borrow there. And so
we're not getting any video of you.
Oh, you're not?
No, we just got your logo.
Time for him.
Oh, that's terrible.
We just got your logo, dude.
Oh, well, sorry. Let me get out of here then. Yeah.
Okay.
My bad. I thought it was going to do its thing. So, you guys just lost out then. I might post it later, you know? We'll say it like you're lost, not mine. So, no, I want to thank everybody for being here. Honestly,
that's what's classically called the curse of the live demo.
Yep. Yeah. Oh my God, it's so bad to scroll. I swear it was here, man. It's here yesterday. So, but yeah, I just want to thank everybody. This is like super high level conversation, and I try to like balance it out because it's so much good information and it's so much, you know, just stuff that you can use every single day that, you know, you want to balance it out with a little bit of laughter so that we hit all these senses. If we're on the phone and we smoke together, right, we're all thinking the same light, so we're vibrating the same frequency and we're seeing each other. And, you know, if we're touching anything, you know, we stimulate all these senses at once. And that gives us the ability to really take this type of moment and realize the giantness of it, but also realize how we're nothing in addition, right? Like we're both everything and nothing. And if we keep that light moving forward and us youngsters can step in you guys' light with the humble mindset going towards this thing, it's just great for a man my age. It's unbelievable. So, Sonya's on the phone too. So I'll tell you what, I got to get her in here. So I'm going to go ahead and start moving stuff around. But I love all you guys, and everybody have a kick-ass 420.
Cool.
Thanks
a lot. Bye.
Bye.
Nice.
You still there?
Are we on Facebook? No, we're on Zoom. We're on Zoom.
Yeah, we're on Facebook too.
Yeah, the Zoom is streaming through Facebook.
Okay, we got there. Okay. Well, this is popping in. Who's driving this?
Joshua.
Well, while we're waiting, Lynn, why don't you tell
I'm driving the next round. I don't know who drove you guys here, but
Hey, we're
Kiwi.
We've been here from the beginning.
Well,
happy 420, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
Where's everyone from?
Johannesburg, South Africa.
Rad.
Cape Town, South Africa.
Yeah, Cape Town.
Wellington.
Isn't technology amazing?
New Zealand.
Like you guys are next door.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yes,
so cool.
David, where are you from? David Nathan.
Hello. United
David,
States of America. Land of the some people.
Dr. Nathan.
Not so free all of a sudden.
Well, depends how you look at it, right?
Yeah.
Indeed. And we're looking at it from all angles from 3,000 kilometers away. So it's a lot easier.
Indeed. Yes. The benefit of some distance, I would say.
Well, we had a guest on this week's Hotbox show, which we're actually in the Hotbox studio in Johannesburg. We have a weekly cannabis culture show live on YouTube. And we had cannabis journalist Danny Danko on the show, and he was literally in his apartment in Brooklyn. And his message was, if anybody out there who still thinks that this is all baloney and it's all a conspiracy to control us and put a chip in our heads, then he can tell you that it's absolutely real. He's literally right in the thick of it in New York, and it was quite sobering listening to it in Johannesburg. So yeah, I would like to.
And we are close by. You know, I'm in Princeton, New Jersey, and we are about an hour outside New York. And what's remarkable is my wife's little brother, whose wife is about to have a baby, actually came here to where we have quite a few cases of COVID. But they were coming from Brooklyn, where it was, can we say shit show on this outlet?
Yeah,
it's a free world.
Yeah.
It's a cannabis-based over 18 show.
Indeed. So yeah, here in Princeton, we've had a lot of cases. Our at the hospital where I'm the director of continuing education, we see the hospital is busy, but it's not over capacity. About a third of our ventilators are being used. That's a good number, meaning not higher. And we've had quite a few deaths. We've had dozens of deaths in Princeton, which isn't just the town, but the town itself is about 30,000 people. So we've been hit hard. And actually a prominent mathematician at Princeton, John Conway, who's famous for inventing the online game of life, or the computer game of life that some of us must know from growing up.
Remember that one.
Yes, he just passed away, and it was a result of COVID.
Oh, that's sad.
Dr. Nathan, you're a psychiatrist?
I am.
Wow, this is going to be a fun conversation. I can't
Oh,
wait
absolutely.
for this.
Absolutely.
note-
From all dimensions. You know, there's so much to talk about because I get, you know, last week there was a viral exchange I had with somebody who was saying that, you know, this guy's a psychiatrist and he supports legalization. He must have graduated at the bottom of his class. I explained how I had gone to Princeton University and did my residency at Harvard. That was kind of a bit of a mic drop that got a lot of attention that was actually a lot of fun to watch. In any case, people are looking to see what does a psychiatrist have to say about cannabis use, and it depends what angle you're looking from. So I know this is a kind of ask me anything, and so ask me anything.
So wait a second, really quick, just to be clear, Martell, are we starting yet? Is this the panel?
No, so I was gonna ask Mary Lynn. So we're expecting 3 doctors in the panel. I'm gonna put everybody else in the waiting room because if they want to watch this conversation, by all means, we want them there. But the panel should stay as the panel is so we can have it for the content. And so
yeah, because I don't want interruptions when I'm interviewing.
I understand.
Martell, can I make, before I go to the waiting room, can I make one point? Because David touched on something very important.
Yeah.
Can we all also just remember a great freedom fighter who passed from COVID recently, is little Charlotte from from Charlotte's Web.
Mm-hmm.
She managed to do what so many of us have been trying to do for so many years, is open the hearts of people towards the plant and the healing it can bring. And it was during this crisis, just in the build-up, that she passed, not from all the seizures she's had all her life, not from all the battles she's fought physically, from this little virus that managed to get her. So I'll definitely be sparking one up in her honor today. And I just want to say thanks. It's been a great show. And I look forward to watching what the doctors have to say. If you'd like
to hey, appreciate you. This is doing live, so yeah, it's gonna be great. Keep watching later though. We got Kyle Turley coming on from the Broncos. He's real controversial right now. I want to see what he has to say because I just don't know. And so I'm super pumped. And then we got Ernie Safalo, who did all the covers for Alice in Chains. He owns Asha Seeds, and they did the Jesus Christ Superstar album. He's giving away like a couple original print album covers. So it's gonna be sick. And he's with Paul Stanford. I mean, we're getting batty today. So. All right, guys.
Just before you get started here, just be aware the time. We stop at 20 past the hour.
Yeah.
And we celebrate 4:20 in the next zone, and then we come back to the conversation.
Yeah,
I will give you 60 seconds warning that we're going to interrupt the conversation. Other than that, I'm going to shut the hell up because I'm not going to have any debate with the psychiatrist.
Look, Dakta, you're staying in this room. Dakta, you're staying in this room.
I already know I'm crazy.
You're staying in this room. You can be on mute or whatever you want to do, but you're staying in this room. You're our resident 20 after guy. And so if we don't have you, we're lost as a people, you know?
We're bound to forget.
We are.
No, I got the clock ticking. I'm watching. You start whatever you want to start, but in 12 minutes' time, I'm going to go, whoa, 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 whoa.
All right, sweet A.
Okay, go hard.
Okay, this is Mary Lynn now. I just wanted to let folks know we're waiting for a couple of other docs, so I don't know if they're in the background, Dr. Sue Sisley and Dr. Dennis Petro. But David Nathan coming to us from Princeton. And David, one of the things we do want you to touch on is he's part of an organization, Doctors for Cannabis Regulation. And again, that's all about let's free this plant and allow it to be used for whatever we need it to be used for. So, David?
Yes.
David, this is Al Byrne. I'm Mary Lynn's wife. I'm sure you know this, but just so the other folks that are listening in feel good about this, to my mind, there are 3 medical heroes in the past that are working on a therapeutic cannabis issue. They're all psychiatrists. Lester Grinspoon wrote Marijuana Reconsidered in the 70s. That prompted a lot of stuff. Mary Lynn and I consider our mentor to be a wonderful psychiatrist from Harvard named Norman Zinberg. And then deceased, unfortunately. And then the third would be a California psychiatrist named Todd Nicoria, who was on our board, but again, deceased. But Nathan, you're in good company.
Yes, absolutely. And pretty inspiring company as well. Lester Grinspoon, who's really gotten up there in years, is on the honorary board of Doctors for Cannabis Regulation, was actually the first person appointed to that board. And his son somewhat coincidentally, I should add, is on the board of directors of Doctors for Cannabis Regulation. We kind of discovered him. I knew that the name Grinspoon had to be connected, but it wasn't until we really started talking to him that we realized it was his son. And they're really a prolific and inspiring family.
And Peter did do an interview for this show, so I think they've already heard from Dr. Peter Grinspoon.
His opening was awesome too. It was really good.
Yeah.
It was just a couple of days ago in Boston. It was snowing.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
right.
But anyway, great interview, a great doctor, nice man.
So who are we waiting on?
Looks like Sue Sisley and Dennis Petro. I'm going to go check on them now.
I can sort of introduce these folks while we're waiting. Dennis Petro was a founding director of Patients at a Time when we founded it. Marilyn and I founded it in 1995, and he remains on the board of directors. He's an internationally known drug researcher. He's done quite a bit of work for our armed forces in his specialty of drug research. And Dr. Sue Sisley is one of the veterans' heroes. She has been trying, she tried in the past to study veterans' use of cannabis therapeutically for post-traumatic stress and suffered greatly for it. I don't want to go into all the details, I think she'll tell you, but anyway, the end result is now Dr. Sisley is in the process of studying veteran use of cannabis for post-traumatic stress. She's somewhat into her study. I don't think she can tell us it's good or bad or sideways, but she can tell us what they're doing. But anyway, she has paid a price. But I don't know a veteran in the United States that isn't indebted to her. She's an honorary veteran as far as we're concerned. So these two guys are worth waiting for. Let me tell you.
Oh yeah. And look, it's 4:20. Nobody has shit to do. I mean, this is brilliant information coming in here. Everybody's just swamping it. So yeah, I'm excited. First panel was awesome. This one should be even better. Maybe. I don't know. It's all just really good stuff. Honestly, I'm having a great time today. Josh, quick question. So I know how you do your thing. I'm just gonna hand you the host. Okay.
Cool.
And so you got to run a control over it. I'm probably going to take a nap because I haven't been sleeping like 40 hours or so, maybe 50.
Please go to sleep.
Don't worry about me. I'll be fine.
We need you later, man.
Yeah, I'm just hit it hard and bring it home. So it's all good. But Casper should be up in like a couple hours. Yeah, that should be about that. So I'm going to hand you the host right now.
Okay. How do I make this stop messaging me?
Changing host.
Hi guys.
Well, Martell, before you go, thank you, sir. You've done very well, and yeah, get some rest. You deserve it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It means a lot coming from you out because you guys have been working your ass off on this thing too, man. But I'm just
it was fun, man. We had fun.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I had a great time.
Thanks from South Africa too. And Martell, just remember what happened last time we changed host. The host had to stream live on Facebook as well. Is that just?
Yep. You're sure right.
What happened?
So when we changed host last time, the stream dropped off, and so I can give you I'll probably give you co-host actually, and just leave mine on. I think we're good.
Okay.
So I got time for him here, and then. Okay, I'm gonna give myself host. We're good. You don't have to. I'm gonna give
I
you
have
co-host
Dr. Nathan, Dr. Sisley, and Dr. Petro.
Yeah.
Okay. So who's Dr. Petro?
Petro.
Petro.
Yeah.
Who's Dr. Petro? Is he here or
No.
she? Okay. Dr. Sisley.
Dr. Sisley's not here, so we're waiting. She went to go find Dr. Petro and Dr. Sisley. They should be coming. We're going to smoke here in about 5 minutes anyway, probably less.
Okay.
What time is it?
5-minute call.
5-minute
call for London.
Yeah, so I'm not even worried about sweating until after we smoke. I'll wait to take my break till after we smoke too, and we can start up right after.
So how about this? So like at 10, it's 10:14 here, Minnesota time.
Yeah.
And I'll come on and like introduce this 420 and then we'll segue from there. How about that?
Cool.
You're going to introduce London's 420?
Pardon me?
Are you going
London's
to introduce
420?
The 420 is for London.
Yeah.
Okay.
London,
420s for London. Excellent. Thank
London,
you.
Ireland.
You better let a veteran handle it. Yeah.
You got it.
You got it? London, Ireland. Get your list of countries and act like you've been there before. We're good.
I think it might be the beautiful country of Morocco as well, and all the lovely hash there.
Oh, nice.
I love the Moroccan people. They're amazing.
Yeah.
Tons of passion.
It's a beautiful country. Highly recommended it for anyone who can move after lockdown.
I need somewhere to be off grid at. You know, if they don't have a lot of 5G, then I'm good there for sure. I'm going where the least amount of 5G is anywhere, which is like somewhere where there's no 5G. I need to smoke something to go to bed.
Tony, it sounds like you might be coming to us from the Beatles country.
Who's that? Myself?
Yes.
No, I'm from the deep south, from South Africa, Cape Town.
Wow. Oh, now that you say Cape Town, I hear it. That's funny. I thought I was getting a little Liverpudley in there.
No, I spent some time in that area, but not long enough to pick up any of their habits or accents. Thankfully.
Now that I'm listening closely. See, that's just to prove I'm American. I can't tell the difference between non-Americans. So.
Yeah.
I know. It's the first time I've got Liverpudlian. Usually it's Australian or New Zealand, but
right.
Yeah, I'll take it as an
transfer.
Australian.
Well, here's Mary Lynn again. Look, I'll give you guys an update. As usual, it's Monday and it's the COVID-19 time. So unfortunately, Dr. Petro is off to, he's got an aunt who's sick. I guess she's about 95 years old. So he's going to make sure her care gets taken, she gets the right care. And I'm not sure about Sue Sisley. I know she's been called back to work down in Phoenix, Arizona. She normally does telemedicine. She's a psychiatrist as well. But I know she's been called in. So we're waiting just if we can hear back from them.
So while we do this, let's pivot. So while we pivot, and Dr. Nathan, if you, Josh, you want to run through with Dr. Nathan and kind of get some facts out of them. If they call them, we're good. If they don't, then we'll just figure out something else to do. But I got some brands I need to highlight as well too. And I want to tell everybody about this Leaf 411 because it seems like everybody's been talking about doctors getting education afterwards, right? Like everybody's been talking about aftercare and just the ability to continued education for new doctors looking to get into cannabis to be productive. And so Leaf 411 does that as a service, and we partnered with them. That's what their 501c, and they provide that service. And they are ridiculous good. I'll show a little video that I got from them, but they're going to be in talk, and I need to call them back because Kristen, she's in Denver. They're out of Denver. They just opened up 3 more locations, but they do free phone calls for the prescription and for the customers, and they do free consultation for the doctors. So they handle both sides of it, and they're all professional RNs that have been in Denver medicine for since well before it went legal. And so, really good, strong resource. I know 3 or 4 different people, including the panel that we touched on the other day, were all discussing that topic of, continued education. I think we're all proponents for doctors having continued education as far as on the plant goes. So I'll give them a shout while we're kind of on our hiatus. How are we looking on time, Dakta? I'm trying to smoke this thing.
We're coming up to 1.25 minutes.
It's funny. I've been smoking this whole hour. It's like I got to wait 1 minute to smoke. Like I can start smoking now and be smoking.
Yeah, you got to wait. Doesn't work unless you comply with
I'm an adult.
Boss says wait, you wait.
I love Mr. Chiles' pipe he's got there. That looks pretty.
1 minute.
That is what's up.
Yeah.
There is a continuing education online service. It's been online for about 5 years in the United States. It's called, and you need to use this word, the Medical Cannabis Institute.com. This is an online accredited program for doctors, nurses, researchers, etc. Of course, anybody can take it, but the accreditation is available for those professions. It is a whole spectrum of cannabis clinical work is discussed. It's a audio video type situation. People pay a fee, they take a test, they pass it, They get the credits. They don't pass it, they don't.
Okay.
The Cannabis Institute.com.
Coming up to 5-minute call. 5, 4, 3, 2. It's 420, people.
20 somewhere.
420 in Portugal. 420.
Okay.
Portugal, Ireland, Scotland, England,
Is it?
Morocco,
United Kingdom, Ireland. Yep.
Happy 420.
happy 420.
Happy 420. Woo. You can go ahead and introduce yourself, Josh, and take off, and we'll step back. Mary Lynn, hop back on if you get a phone call, but otherwise, we'll let you have it, Dr. Nathan. Pleasure to meet you as well.
What's up, everybody? My name is Joshua T. Berglan, and welcome to the iHeart 420 Time for Hemp Couch Lovefest. We are celebrating 420 all over the world with some of the most brilliant minds in cannabis, people that have fought the good fight, have been in the trenches fighting on behalf of our access to be able to use this amazing, amazing crop. A gift from God, if you ask me. But at the same time, we're also here with very, very just everything from physicians to advocates. This has been an amazing event, and thank you everyone who has been with us for the long haul of this broadcast. It is 10:20 a.m. We just celebrated 420 in Ireland, Morocco, the UK. But here right now, it's 10:20 a.m. Central Time, and we are here with Dr. David Nathan, Dakta Green. Who else is here? We have Gary Chiles, who's in New Zealand. Is there Al Byrne? Ma'am, what is your name?
Maryland Mathre with Patients Out of Time. We're coming from Florida right now.
Right on. What part of Florida?
The Panhandle. Actually, it's called the Forgotten Coast.
We're also in a place called Tate's Hell State Park, and it's a rather beautiful place. It has a story, of course, but that's where we are. We don't want you to know exactly where we are because we don't want you to come. We would like it just like it is.
That's why
I understand.
Why it's a forgotten place. You don't want us to know.
That's right. That's right, sir.
They've already forgotten where you live.
One time when I first moved to South Florida, I moved to Boca Raton when I was going to college, and I drove from Oklahoma, and I got to the Panhandle so fast. I go, oh my God, I guess I can just keep on driving to Boca. And then so I stopped at this hotel, and I go, this is before GPS, and I said, hey, how much longer to Boca? 14 hours. Oh. I want to look so small on a map, but it's actually it's a lot bigger than
time zones.
Huh?
It's 2 time zones,
but very long, but a very long state.
And it's the further south of you go, the closer to hell you get. So that was my impression of living in Florida.
Now we're up on the northwest coast, right off the Gulf, near Apalachicola.
Oh wow, nice.
And actually, Boca Raton is, I think, somewhat more akin to heaven's waiting room than hell.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You didn't go to college with me, sir. So
No, I didn't. But I had grandparents in Boca Raton, like the nice Jewish kid that I was. And yeah, they pretty much go down there to run out the clock.
Oh man, yeah, it's a great place. I really enjoyed my time there. I learned a lot. Of course, I worked with complex disabilities for 18 years of my life, so that was like the perfect place to have a business. Yep. Hey, Dr. Nathan, I am absolutely intrigued with your background in psychiatry, and of course, here you are, part of this 420 event that we're doing. I was diagnosed, I've been misdiagnosed for most of my life and prescribed every type of mental health drug you can imagine. The final drug or the final diagnosis I was given was DID and borderline personality disorder. But for some reason, I stopped using medication, all of the psychiatric meds and all that other crap that I was prescribed, 9 medications total, by the way. And what I know, I one day got this weird feeling in my gut. You know what? Screw this. I'm not taking this. I don't like the way this makes me feel. It's just driving me to use meth and cocaine. Screw this. I'm going to stop and I'm going to start using cannabis instead. I do not recommend anybody just stop taking all of their drugs or their prescribed medications. However, for me, I felt desperate. I felt like I was dying inside from everything I was prescribed. I started using cannabis, and all of a sudden, all of these side effects and unwanted things I did not like from my mental health drugs went away. And now here I am 5 years later, having not used any medications in 5 years. And I would say that all of these things that I was diagnosed with have gone away. Can you speak as a professional, and I don't want you to say anything that would get you in trouble, but can you speak in your background?
Too late for that, but thank you.
Yeah. You what now?
Too late for that, but thank you.
Okay, then let's just torch everything then. So yeah. Can you speak about what I just told you? Like, as a medical professional, speak to what I just told you.
Sure. So basically what you described is what researchers would call an N of 1. Meaning one subject and one outcome. So when we do studies, we want very large numbers to try to understand what works. And that, at least theoretically, is how we get drugs that in the United States are approved by the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, other entities in New Zealand and South Africa and other countries. We like the prospective, double-blind, placebo-controlled studies that allow us to randomize people into groups and say, okay, this group, let's try this, and this group, let's try the other thing, or a placebo, and let's see what the difference is between the two groups. And that sounds very nice, but very hard to do that in psychiatry generally. And when the FDA has ruled that the medication under consideration has no medical value and cannot be examined unless first approved by the people who are in a position of having a vested interest in maintaining its illegality, almost impossible to study. So what do we have to go by? We have anecdote. And there are anecdotes very much like yours, whether it's with the kind of diagnoses you described, or post-traumatic stress disorder, or bipolar disorder, or depression, or anxiety. And all of these diagnoses have some data from individuals who have tried cannabis or other drugs in order to treat it. And what we see is that, as kids nowadays would write, YMMV, your mileage may vary. So you're talking about taking an infinitely complex plant that has many different variations in the amount of THC, the psychoactive ingredient, CBD, a mildly psychoactive ingredient, and an infinitely complex human being that is just like the cannabis plant is like no other. The human that is taking the cannabis is like no other. And so when you put the two together, you're going to get a very individualized response. And we, of course, on a podcast like this, are talking to the people who have had good responses to cannabis because they continue using it. But of course, people have bad responses. And, you know, the classic example is somebody with a predisposition to psychosis who consumes cannabis and develops psychosis. That's a bad outcome. So it can happen for sure. Now the question is, how do we handle policy on the basis of anecdotal evidence? And to my mind, the question is not so much how effective cannabis is, but rather how harmful it is. And when we look at cannabis compared to other so-called drugs of abuse, and if we look at cannabis compared to other psychoactive drugs, and by that I mean anything from heroin to Haldol, how does it look in terms of side effect profile? And the answer is it's pretty mild. You know, as your listeners most likely know, as the viewers know, that it is a non-lethal medication in the worst case scenario. So if you are not predisposed to psychosis, if you are not somebody in possession of a developing brain, meaning at a young age, and if you are not a pregnant or a breastfeeding woman, the risk of at least trying cannabis is relatively low. Oh, one more group is people with a history of substance use problems. Now, that's a group to look at because on the one hand, there are people where if they take any drug that can whet their appetite for other drugs, they're in trouble. And cannabis for some people is a drug just like that. But for a lot of people, and we know this from the government's own statistics in the United States, people with a history of opioid use disorder may, on balance, benefit from the use of cannabis as an exit drug, or at least a drug that can mitigate the use of opioids. Now, we can't say that with great confidence because the studies still cannot be done, thanks to the status of cannabis in the United States and elsewhere around the world. But what we do know is all of us know somebody, and anybody who is watching this podcast and saw Dr. Peter Grinspoon speak earlier about his personal experience, have been exposed to individuals who will swear on a stack of Bibles that cannabis is the reason that they're not using opioids. I have a personal example, which is my father, who is somebody living with Parkinson's disease. And I wanted him to take cannabis to see if it could help with the severe dyskinesia that he had from the medication he takes to treat the Parkinson's. And it did help. But what it also did was allow him to reduce and largely eliminate his use of any opioids for the severe neck and back pain he has from a lifetime of spine problems. And so there's another example. Does that mean that it needs to be universally adopted? Of course not. But it does mean that the government should allow consenting adults who are competent to do so to choose to use the less dangerous drug, that being cannabis.
Speaking on the opioid, so I've had 2 back surgeries. The first one, I shared this, I did an interview to a panel of physicians a couple days ago for this event and shared this story. I think you're more qualified to actually answer this, believe it or not. The first back surgery, I was terrified of opioids because of what I'd seen working in healthcare for so long. People taking hundreds and hundreds of Oxycontin a day and just toxic and not being able to move. I'm screw that, I'm not that guy. Using pot brownies, I was able to basically not use a single pain pill. After 2 weeks as an S1L5 fusion, I was back working out, doing yoga, doing everything. Now, I had to have a second surgery. In that second surgery, I could not get access to cannabis. And of course, they gave me pain medication. I immediately became addicted to the point that I was dope sick, awful. Even though I went back to work out after 2 weeks again, the pain, the inflammation, like I don't feel like my body truly healed from that. And I would love to see a study go towards that. Now, I know that Israel is one of the places that's known for doing research like this. Why is it that we in America, and this goes across the board with psychiatric drugs, any type of medication, but in the spirit of cannabis, what we're talking about here, why is it that we're not looking at the research that's been done in other countries? It's not like they're not credible physicians. Just because they didn't go to American medical school doesn't mean that they're not a qualified psychiatrist or plastic surgeon or general practitioner.
That's right. And I can explain it not with any good reason, but rather just with the observation that this is nothing particular to cannabis in the United States. Mm-hmm. When we look at a medication for FDA approval, they want to see studies done in the United States. There is a very strong bias toward studies done here, to the extent that many medications that are approved around the world cannot get FDA approval if the studies haven't been done in the United States to the satisfaction of the FDA. So a great example of that straddles the world of big pharma and cannabis is Sativex, which is the brand name for a 50-50 mixture of THC and CBD that is available in most of the civilized world, not available in the United States because it's not FDA approved, partly because it is cannabis derived, and we still have that as Schedule 1. So it is only with American studies that we could get it approved. And that, of course, is the paradox that Dr. Sisley would talk about, which is that you can't do the study if it's not considered safe, and you can't establish the safety unless you can do this study.
That is a hell of a paradox.
That's right. And it really comes down to, rather than being a public health issue, which, you know, the FDA's conservatism is born out of experience. So everybody has heard of thalidomide and the effect that that had on pregnant women in inducing birth defects. And the FDA decided that was never going to happen again. And so they've been very cautious about approval of new medications without a lot of study. And cannabis, of course, shouldn't be any different in that respect, but it also shouldn't be any different. So the problem is that what we regard as a public health protection is in the minds or in the unconscious of the people who are making decisions about studies, really a misguided morality about the idea of drug use. That drug use is bad. Medications are good, but drugs are bad, as if there is a difference. That we can draw a hard line between them. So, of course, cannabis is bad, but opioids, because they are FDA approved, are perfectly safe. Not, of course. And not to create a straw man argument, I think medicine has finally been humbled into understanding the potential harms of cannabis, of opioids. Finally gotten that and understanding that cannabis is a much less harmful alternative. So that is why we are seeing movement, and we're seeing a lot of agitation toward the FDA, and the FDA, the DEA, and the National Institutes on Drug Abuse are feeling the heat. And that's a good thing, because you are now starting to hear a different line. So for example, Dr. Nora Volkow, head of NIDA, the National Institute on Drug Abuse, has herself said, we really do need to do more research, and our policies have blocked that. So that's a real step in the right direction, and I commend Dr. Volkow and NIDA for taking what is essentially a small but brave step toward recognizing that the policy is wrong and needs to change.
I love that. So I want to talk about psychosis really quick. You know, a lot of people I know that have used ayahuasca or mushrooms in ceremonies, they've done that to be able to face their demons, to heal, to get rid of psychosis. But I've heard in spiritual practice, the spiritual use of cannabis, it can have the same side effect where it's getting rid of what's diagnosed as psychosis. What is your feeling about using cannabis to fight psychosis? I mean, is there any evidence to prove that it could be effective against it?
There is actually quite a bit of evidence to demonstrate that cannabis does in fact trigger and exacerbate psychosis across a population. Yeah. So I'm always going to call it like I see it. My specialty is bipolar and psychotic disorders. However, one thing that is also true is that high doses of CBD are pretty well established as being mildly antipsychotic, which makes some sense, because if you think of THC as being an irritant to whatever pathways tend to lead to psychosis, and therefore put people at greater risk. And I myself have witnessed this in young patients who try cannabis and develop psychosis, usually with a family history behind that. But CBD, you know, at least taken by itself, or at least in the absence of THC, does make for a potential adjunct, meaning something you can add to the treatment of psychosis that actually further reduces the risk or presence of psychosis in vulnerable individuals. So cannabis as a whole plant, THC rich entourage effect drug is actually it's one of the few things we can say with some confidence about the negative effects of cannabis. It does seem to trigger and exacerbate psychosis.
That's a really great, I appreciate you being
honest about that. And it's a hard, you know, I wish it were otherwise.
Sure.
But
the reason I stopped taking all of the medications is because the moments of, I felt it in my gut that cannabis was the thing for me to use.
Sure.
But when I would use it, I would lose my bleeping mind. but it was because I was on, you know, all of these other mental health, Lamictal, what's the ADHD drug that's basically methamphetamine? Like I'm on all of these pain pill, like on antipsychotics. So it triggered it. And then I'm having horrible panic attacks. And then that's finally said, I'm stopping it. What, if I could choose anything, what would it be? I would rather be high with cannabis than the feelings of the other medications. All that did was drive me to want to use more hardcore drugs anyway. That's why I quit. And I felt like, and it was a combination of CBD and THC, to be fair. So I'm
how can that be?
What you said.
Huh? And it goes, and you're wondering, how can that be given what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So one thought, I mean, there are lots of possibilities, but I think probably the leading possibility is that whatever genetic and environmental factors go into the issues that you had, with or without the other psychiatric medications, it may be that you're not one of those people who's really vulnerable to a primary psychosis, meaning a psychosis that would appear no matter what you were doing in life, even if your life was peachy, you were going to develop schizophrenia or another psychotic disorder. People like that are the ones that are at risk. Other people will find that cannabis may be clarifying for them. So there are people with ADHD, anecdotally again, who will say that the best thing for them is not Adderall or Ritalin or dextroamphetamine or one of the stimulants, but rather cannabis. But that doesn't mean that it's what you first recommend for everybody. And that's a difficult thing. The longer we have to do genetic testing and suss out what different genetic constellations lead to different kinds of psychiatric problems, the better we will be in having personalized recommendations about what drugs, whether that be cannabis or Adderall, will be helpful for a particular individual's ADHD. So for somebody with PTSD, the standard of care remains that a frontline medication is an SSRI, which tends to be a fairly well-tolerated drug if you're okay with weight gain and sexual dysfunction.
No.
But other than that, no, but in general, it's not a dangerous drug. Just like cannabis is not a dangerous drug. And so in my practice, for PTSD, because it's much less psychoactive than cannabis, it's something that I would recommend. But at the same time, there are people for whom SSRIs do not work or are counterproductive. And you have many veterans coming back from the wars abroad who are saying that if it weren't for cannabis, they would now be dead because the level of suicidality they had on or off other medications was enough to lead them to suicide. And cannabis, I do believe those people when they say, you know, look, I jumped out of helicopters, I'm not a wimp, but I have PTSD, and if it weren't for my use of cannabis, I would not be here today. I believe those people, but those are individuals, and we need to get better through research at understanding which individuals benefit most from cannabis as opposed to some other kind of medication.
I've always been, I remember when I was probably about 9 or 10 years old, I remember going into my parents' medicine cabinet and finding Juice Plus, which, you know, O.J. Simpson used to promote it, the little vegetable capsules and fruit capsules. So I got accustomed to experimenting with pills early. And mind you, it was Juice Plus, but it was like I would go through the medicine cabinet looking to feel like I was always testing myself with a different substance, I don't care if it was a nootropic or, you know, some type of caffeine stimulant or cocaine or ketamine or, you know, I was always testing on myself. And what I noticed with my own journey with self-medicating, and I've worked with physicians for over 26 years, and I don't go to a physician. Like I've self-medicated my whole life, and I figured out what worked. But it's kind of scary, but I've noticed for me, I can use a sativa. A sativa normalizes me a great deal. It's kind of the reason why I love cocaine and meth so much. Well, until I got to the freaky weird sex stuff. But I mean, you know, the the feeling that I was seeking and that I loved, I liked. Sativa, I noticed, was like became my anti-cocaine, my vaporizer. I would walk around with this. Oh, you can't see it because this thing. I would walk around with it because it was my anti-cocaine stick. But I noticed if I used like an indica, the same way with the medications, the pharmaceutical medications I was taking that made me feel dopey and sluggish and not myself and not real clear-headed, that drove me and it stimulated my desire to use cocaine. A sativa has never done that. In fact, if anything, a sativa has also made me not want to take caffeine either. I would love to see a push in the mental health field to really see these kind of things studied, especially with the strand of cannabis and so on, because I know in my own life, and I know I'm just one person, but cannabis I think it's saved my life because it's kept me from just hauling off and going on 4-day meth binges. And I'm 40 years old. I have a ministry. I'm a pro-cannabis, Jesus-loving, like an advocate for people's rights, but I want people to use it responsibly. But the reason why, even with having a ministry, I will not hide from my love and appreciation for cannabis and the people that have been in the trenches fighting for my access is because it saved my life.
Right. Now, you would also probably say to your viewers that you're not saying that sativa is right for everybody.
No, God, no.
Right. And that's really, I think, the important message is that you got to figure out what is good for you. And the best way to do it is cautiously, whatever that means. But it means doing so, the old adage in medicine applies to the use of cannabis as well, which is start low, go slow, right? Mary Lynn, I'm sure, is very familiar. You've been sitting, by the way, very admirably patiently. I know you have a lot you would want to say on these matters, Mary Lynn, but I appreciate you giving me the forum here. It really is a matter of being careful. And with cannabis, you can be a little more careful. Again, unless you're in one of those high-risk groups, in which case I believe you really should talk to a healthcare provider before ever trying cannabis. So if you are prone to psychosis, meaning it's in the family or you've had it, and by the way, I think we should talk a little bit about what it means to have psychosis, because people use it as a broad term and it actually has a specific meaning. But if you are pregnant, breastfeeding, if you are very young, if you're a teenager, the medicinal use of cannabis should be under the supervision of a healthcare provider. So when we say psychosis, I think it's important to parse that out a little bit for those who are tuned in. The opposition to legalization will say that cannabis causes psychosis because people who take cannabis will sometimes immediately experience a psychotic episode that will last several hours and then it goes away. In the way I was trained in psychiatry, that's not psychosis. That's actually a kind of drug-induced delirium. Okay, what's the definition of that? That is a break from reality that lasts a very short time, or at least only so long as there is some medical cause of those symptoms. And as soon as that medical cause goes away, either you stop whatever the drug was that caused the psychosis, the delirium, or you have a medical condition that clears up, then the delirium goes away. But when you say somebody has a psychosis, that means that they're out of touch with what is otherwise a shared reality, meaning they're hearing voices other people aren't hearing, or they're seeing things other people aren't seeing, or they believe there is a conspiracy that just about nobody else thinks is actually going on. That is psychosis, can be triggered or made worse by cannabis, but to our knowledge does not occur to individuals who are not otherwise predisposed to psychosis. So that's why I say triggered and not caused. Gets a little semantic, but I think it's an important difference and distinction to make for the public.
I think that's an awesome point. And the rest of the group that's here, if you feel inspired to ask a question, just raise your hand. I'll call on you, because I want you to, this is a rare opportunity to be able to sit and visit with somebody with the doctor's expertise. So I'll get to you in just a second. But I do want to ask you really quick, Doctor. It takes a lot of balls, pardon the term, forgive the term, but it takes a lot of balls to be in your field, your medical, your profession and your background, to take a stand in this industry. What inspired you to do this? Because it's not an easy road. Just like the trailblazers that were in the trenches protesting and fighting, coming from the medical field, that side, and just the reputation that you must uphold, I think it's very, very unique and special that you're willing to take this fight on. What motivated you to do that?
Well, I'll give you the very short version of my origin story, but first I'll say what I often say about, going into these hostile audiences, mainly around medical societies that tend to be run by older doctors who consider any discussion of drug policy reform as a political third rail and highly irresponsible for a physician to undertake. But when I go into these situations, I do so with confidence because I have the benefit of knowing for certain that I am right about this. And so that's a help. Now, other doctors might dispute my the correctness of that statement. But where it's coming from is, you're talking to a suburban white kid who grew up in the 70s and 80s as a drug warrior, just like anybody else who grew up in my circumstances. And when I published my first article 10 years ago, I got an email from my sister saying, "Congratulations, what family did you grow up in?" Because it seemed so alien for me to be espousing these views. But what happened was, all through college, I never even saw any drug other than alcohol. I was fairly sheltered among my circle of friends. Not that none of my friends used cannabis, but they typically didn't do it out in the open, and I was just never around it. Only once I was in medical school, in fact, most of the way into medical school, did I start hanging around with people who were using it in front of me. And it was actually before that time when I was working on a journal of ethics in medicine, where I was actually a graphics editor, but reading through articles by Ethan Nadelman, the pioneer of drug policy reform, and William Bennett, one of the first and certainly most important drug czars in America. So this is 1990, 91. I read their articles, and William Bennett's article about the drug war was everything you had heard in the news. And then I read what Ethan Nadelman had to say about mass incarceration and the utter futility of trying to prevent people from using drugs because they're going to do it anyway. And it opened my eyes and made me realize in one of those moments in life that was a true epiphany was that I had been wrong all these years in my thinking. And so it started there and only built up with time as I was exposed to psychiatry and the treatment of substance misuse, and more understood that the drug war was not benefiting people with drug problems, nor was it preventing people from using drugs. And it became a real bee in my bonnet over the course of my med school and residency. And I would say it was the first 12 years of my private practice. I talked to patients quietly and never said publicly about how, there are levels of problems, and cannabis, as problems go, is not a big problem for the majority of people. And if you tell me you're drinking a lot of alcohol and smoking a lot of weed, I'm going to tell you to cut back on the alcohol before I talk about cutting back on the cannabis, because I have, like I've said before, I got to call it like I see it. Right. And that was important to me, to be a truth teller. And when it finally got to the point that I had seen so many lives ruined by cannabis prohibition and virtually no lives specifically ruined by the use of cannabis, I felt like I had to say something. So I wrote an article that got run in the Wall Street Journal, and You know, I thought I had gotten Andy Warhol's 15 minutes of fame out of that. It was very exciting. But that turned out just to be the beginning. I thought I was adding my name to the many physicians who speak out on this issue and are like-minded, because I know a lot of them. Turns out very few were willing to go on the record. I could do so because I had a private practice and I have an employer who is very gracious in my education job. As long as I'm very clear that I'm not representing my hospital, they let me say what I need to say. And I think that's really a wonderful credit to their open-mindedness. And so it was a little safer for me to do, but then of course, it became a great demand to hear more of what somebody like me would have to say. And by 2015, after 5 years of speaking and having doctors' heads easily turned by what seemed like pretty basic logic, I realized that we needed a group that would organize and make it safe for other physicians to come out, have the facts, and speak out on this issue. And that was the inspiration for Doctors for Cannabis Regulation, which now we have something close to 1,000 physicians. And that doesn't sound like that many unless you consider that we have never recruited for our organization. Any doctor who is a member because they sought us out. And among our members are prominent doctors like former Surgeon General Joycelyn Elders,
really?
integrative medicine pioneer Andrew Weil, former head of the government substance abuse and mental health clinical division, Dr. H. Wesley Clark. And these are doctors who are willing to put their names on the line for the same reason. And it really has led to a change in the conversation, even within medical societies who have never talked to us. Because at this point, they can no longer say that it's only crackpot doctors who would ever advocate for legalization. It's actually many or most of the doctors who really understand cannabis. Public health experts, psychiatrists like me, substance abuse specialists. Right now, the executive director of Doctors for Cannabis Regulation is also the editor-in-chief of the journal, the American Journal of Drug and Alcohol Abuse, who is a very respected addictionologist who himself has known for decades that this drug war never made sense, and he was looking for his opportunity. And he is now the driving force, if anyone is, behind Doctors for Cannabis Regulation, along with other addictionologists. So the conversation has changed, and I like to think that Doctors for Cannabis Regulation has really moved the needle, and honestly, we've only just begun.
I love it. I'm going to ask one more question. Now, actually, you know what, Mr. Byrne, go ahead and ask your question.
Hey, Nathan. I interviewed Dr. Melanie Dreyer just the other day for this program, and Melanie and I have been friends for 40 years. I think if she was here, she would challenge you on your statements about cannabis use for pregnant women, breastfeeding, etc. She's not. I will for her. My Patients at a Time has had presentations, of course, for years, and Melanie has made most of them about the use of cannabis for pregnant women in Jamaica. Her study found that there was no negatives. In fact, there was positives for the young infants, especially after they got to be about a month old, which brings me to breastfeeding. A wonderful lady working for Raphael Meshulam, now deceased, came to one of our conferences in 6 to 8 years ago anyway. And
Esther?
Huh?
Esther?
Yeah, Esther.
2002.
Yeah, Esther Farid. She showed conclusively that cannabis was needed in breast milk of mice in order for those mice to suckle.
Their own endocannabinoids.
Their own endocannabinoids, that's right. Therefore, the mice that were denied those endocannabinoids did not suckle and died. So I'm wondering what your objection is.
Yeah, no, and you make a great point. And in a sense, I would not disagree with anything you said. Now, I don't necessarily know the studies, but I can well believe that those are well carried out studies. the issue with cannabis in pregnancy and breastfeeding is not the evidence of a problem, it's the absence of evidence. And when there is a lack of evidence, then the best thing for doctors to do is to take a conservative point of view and say, not that it should never be done, but rather it should not be done except under a healthcare provider's supervision. Because as far as molecules go, I think that we are best off when we take a cautious point of view toward anything that we don't specifically know to be safe. So that would mean that, you know, if you don't have to consume a lot of caffeine, then you don't consume a lot of caffeine. Do we expect that caffeine is going to, you know, destroy the brain development of embryos or cause other problems? Not necessarily, but lacking the data lacking a large study that shows the safety of it, then we should say people really should talk to a doctor if they are pregnant and think that they could use it. Now, is that to say there could never be a situation where a pregnant woman would be well advised to use cannabis? That's not what I'm saying. And in fact, I can well understand scenarios where there can be a woman with morning sickness, which, you know, nausea being one of the great medical applications of cannabis, who either cannot take other anti-nausea medications or tried them and they don't work, safe anti-nausea medications that have an established safety profile for pregnant women. If that, in the absence of that, then it may be responsible for a physician to recommend and for a pregnant woman to take cannabis.
Now, hold on, I want to interrupt real quick. So, doctor, you said take cannabis, and Mr. Byrne, you said smoke. Now, from my understanding, and the physicians that I had on on the panel the last interview I did, they were saying that we should not be smoking it. We should take it as an edible, a tea, you know, consume it. But smoking it, and from my understanding, when we light up the leaf, that's what activates the toxins in it, like the heat, the temperature. Is that true? I'm a novice. I'm a self-made, like, so yeah. Forgive my
what you're alluding to.
I'm sorry, Nate. I can only reference Dr. Donald Tashkin.
Okay.
He is the ex-head of UCLA's pulmonary department, and he did a lengthy, decades-long studies on smokers for the United States government. I think it was from NIDA or NIH or somebody. They paid for it. And he studied basically 3 groups of people. He studied folks that, well, I guess it was 4. He studied people that didn't smoke at all. He studied people that just smoked tobacco, studied the people that smoked tobacco and cannabis, and those that smoked cannabis only. The group that did the best, in fact, it was perfect. There was no lung cancer or COPD of any kind, were the cannabis smokers. They did better than people that smoked nothing. I would challenge again people that think smoking cannabis is bad. Dr. Tashkin's NIDA study said it is not. The thing I like about smoking it is that it's easy to titrate, which means I can take a little, wait, see the effect. If I don't have enough, I take a little more. If I'm fine, I stop. I said smoking about Dr. Drea's study because that's what the Jamaican women did. They smoked it. On the other hand, when a baby was born, the first thing the Jamaican ladies do is they give this infant a cannabis tea, a very weak solution of cannabis tea. And here we go back to suckling. Whatever the ancient reason that these women have brought this from Africa, we don't know, but they brought it and they still use it today. So that's why I said smoking. I don't like edibles. I've certainly tried them. They're hard to get a dose. Even if I'm experienced with what I'm eating, I take a quarter of a brownie tonight, and tomorrow I take another quarter of a brownie. It could be a different thing. And so I smoke. And I take Dr. Ware's advice. He's a physician that we work with at McGill University in Canada. And he advises that you use a pipe. And Dr. Taskin would agree, and then he would tell you, as he told me in a personal conversation, don't use that pipe more than 24 hours. Use it, even if you don't share it with anybody. Sorry. Use that pipe, clean it. Use another pipe while that one's being cleaned. Do not use the same pipe, but use.
Why is that?
The tar building up on the pipe, and you're getting more toxins. The other thing he said is to not hold your breath. If you remember the old Cheech and Chong, and you just hold your breath and you think you're going to get really stoned. If you just breathe in, no more than 3 seconds, breathe out, because the smoke then sitting in your lungs is not good. The cannabinoids are going to get absorbed really quickly. So you inhale, it's absorbed, exhale, get the smoke, the yucky chemicals out of your system.
And to your question about temperature, this is important. The THC, the psychotropic action of THC, which is also psychoactive, is not released until the plant is burned, until the product is burned, and it reaches a temperature of some 380, 84 degrees. So, so what does that mean? That means if you eat the plant, there's no
plant, the fresh plant,
a fresh plant, fresh greens. You take the leaf of the plant and you eat those leaves, and it's just done all the time. There is no psychotropic action. There is no psychoactive action because you haven't heated it. I'm assuming you eat it fresh and raw.
That's the THC acid form. And then the heat or age, it'll decarboxylate to THC.
I've never personally tried a tea. I've just heard that for years. And, you know, I use Rick Simpson oil. And as of 2 days ago, I've got a new vape cartridge that I'm using. But Rick Simpson oil is typically what I use in the evening. So I'm not much of I haven't been much of a smoker. So of what you're saying, I'm receiving. So with what you're saying by that logic and that study, it almost makes you think with this coronavirus that's going around, with it going on and with the respiratory issues, it almost makes you wonder, could cannabis be something, smoking cannabis be something that would help it?
Well, if I may jump in.
Please, Dr. Nathan.
So I haven't been so involved in the process that has, or in the discussion that's occurred within Doctors for Cannabis Regulation, talking to pulmonologists and infectious disease specialists, people from every walk of life, have put together a statement that's now on DFCR's website. And it really, and as in true DFCR form, we really try to stick just to the evidence and provide whatever our best medical judgment is. So to Al's point, that UCLA study did in fact show us that cannabis may do many things, but one thing it doesn't do is cause lung cancer when used by itself. We're not as convinced about COPD because some of that can be related to how well your lungs can clear secretions. And if you're inhaling a lot of very hot smoke, you can damage the cells on the surface of the lung that move the secretions, the mucus along to clear our lungs of any toxins. So a little less clear, but the point being that it's fairly clear that vaping is safer than smoking because you don't have the same free radicals. And I see Mary Lynn and Al nodding their heads. So we certainly agree on that. And there's some evidence, given that it's a much purer product and not mixed with anything that itself might be unsafe, the vaporization of flower is safer than the use of concentrates. Yes. Because the concentrates may contain unsafe substances themselves. In both of those cases, what we don't know is how much there can be an effect on the lung that is a negative one when the body then encounters the coronavirus. We know that cannabis and cannabinoids have effects on the immune system, and those effects are complex. It can calm down the immune system and be a kind of anti-inflammatory. It can also reinforce the immune system. But those are two different actions. And what we don't know is whether the consumption of cannabis would be a good thing in the presence of coronavirus, a bad thing, or neutral. And in the absence of that, we just can't say. And I know you're having Kyle Turley on after this, and he has a very different point of view that you will hear. But from my read of the evidence, that's what I see, is that we can't make a recommendation about the simple use of cannabis, but all things being equal, it is safer from the COVID point of view to use topical or oral routes of consumption or suppositories rather than inhalation methods, just based on the simple idea that anything that affects the lung is more likely to harm than help it, because the lungs work just fine the way they are. The issue that I have about making a blanket recommendation, which DFCR did not do, my concern would be what Al said, which is that edible cannabis is much harder to dose. It doesn't kick in for up to an hour, hour and a half. And once it kicks in, it can last a very long time. So if you overshoot the amount you should have taken, it's going to take a while until that goes away. It's a harder thing to get the dose right. You also may not know exactly how much you consume. So even if you made your own edible, you don't necessarily know how much THC you're getting unless you are blessedly in a legalized, regulated state where they tell you how much THC is in a serving. So if you've got that and you know your dose, then I would stick with edibles over inhalation methods right now. If you don't know how to do that, again, I would seek the experience of and the advice of somebody who does know more about going from inhalation methods to oral consumption.
I've noticed something that's really, I don't know if it's like this for just me or if anyone else is like this, but you know, with like caffeine and things like that, you build up a tolerance, you need more and more. Like, but what I've noticed with cannabis, it's always different. Like even using the same, you know, strand or whatever, the same, out of the same vape pen, the same Rick Simpson oil, that's the dose I take one day can have me on the floor, not moving, sleeping. And the other time I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I need more.
It depends on what you've eaten recently. You know, are you tired or are you awake? What other medications might you have ingested knowingly or unknowingly? Meaning, not medication, but grapefruit juice will affect the metabolism of other drugs, including cannabis.
Really?
Yep, because grapefruit juice has effects on the enzymes in the liver that metabolize other medications, such as things like ibuprofen or antipsychotics even. Cannabis, and what's been most studied is CBD, also will affect the metabolism of other medications. And one may conclude from the little evidence there is that it can be affected as well by the consumption of other agents that will affect the liver enzymes. So that is all, that's the case. What's that?
In a good way or a bad way? Like the grapefruit juice.
It can increase or decrease the absorption and or clearance of it. So it's good or bad depending how you look at it, right? It's a neutral thing until you consider whether it makes you have too much or too little in your system. Now, another point is that even if you're using the same dispensary, the same guy that you're getting your cannabis from, and it's the same strain, if it didn't come out in the same batch, it may be a little bit different. Even if it came from the same plant, but from the top of the plant rather than the bottom, you're going to have a different concentration of cannabinoids.
So by that argument, by that point, it sounds like to me it's making a very strong case for cannabis to be regulated in a way. I know regulated is such a fearful word because of what happens with regulation. It becomes over-regulation. But it seems like to me, if we're regulating it, we're studying each plant, which sounds expensive, we could probably fine-tune this process in prescribing, diagnosing dosing, all of that stuff, just like they've done with the pharmaceutical industry.
Yep.
Is that possible with a plant that is so complex and so different all over the world?
It is theoretically possible because, you know, even if we say that there are hundreds of important components to cannabis, well, that is still a finite number. And if we can get a way of either having tissue cultures, that's the state of the art right now. And it's the holy grail to have consistency in cannabis. Just so you know, this is what a lot of people are putting, investors are putting a lot of money into trying to get consistent products. Tissue culture is one way to try to get it so that it's the same cells from one plant to the next that you're growing out into plants. So the plants aren't just clones of a mother plant. They're literally the same plant reincarnated. And hopefully across time, they don't change because the tissue culture is kept very consistent. Okay, so that's just a little aside. That's one way that you can get closer to it. But Sativex is a good example of a formulation that is taken from cannabis, and they maintain a very specific 50-50 ratio of THC to CBD and a certain quantity in each inhalation that is metered through an inhaler. So that's something that is an example of what you can accomplish through technology and through proper testing to ensure a consistent product. So St. John's wort's a great analogy. You know, we know that's a mild antidepressant. It's good for mild to moderate depression. The problem is that, you know, whose St. John's wort are you consuming and how much of its active ingredient or ingredients does it have? Well, Germany has addressed this problem by having, there's a brand Kira that would grow this product in the same way every time, take samples from all different parts of the mountainside where they grew it and put it together, test it and adjust the strength of it to make sure it's the same every time. In theory, we can do that with cannabis, but it's much more complex because of all of the other minor cannabinoids and terpenoids and flavonoids that are probably what make the difference when people say, oh, sativas and indicas are definitely different no matter what. Well, they may have different profiles of those minor constituents. The main thing is figuring out how to replicate those exact fingerprints. Very hard to do.
I love it. I have a question. I know how physicians and research and things like that are pretty important. They go hand in hand, and there's always a fight for more funding. If I gave you a check for $10 billion, and you can only use it towards something cannabis related and not buying up a personal stash either, you can't use that one. What would you do if somebody said, here's a check, I'm going to grant you $10 billion to use on cannabis? What would you do?
One study?
Anything.
Well, first of all, what I would do is fund Doctors for Cannabis Regulation, and I'll tell you why. And I got to put in this plug, not just for fun, because we all need help, and so does Patients Out of Time, if I'm not mistaken. So we all need the support for our advocacy. Doctors for Cannabis Regulation is to cannabis legalization what the Women's Organization for National Prohibition repeal was to alcohol legalization in the 1920s and 30s. Once women had flipped and said that, yes, we said we wanted prohibition because our husbands were coming home drunk and there was a lot of domestic violence. Well, guess what? We've got a whole other kind of violence now. We've got all sorts of other health problems that have resulted from prohibition. And our kids are now drinking alcohol in greater numbers than ever because they're getting it the same way everybody else does, which is illegally. Well, the same thing happened with cannabis. And if we physicians, who were not the people who started prohibition, but we were the ones who kept driving it once it was established.
1 minute.
Are we back 1 minute to 4:20 in Iceland, I'm guessing. So
4:20 a.m. here.
Oh, there you go.
Oh.
Wow. God bless you for being up at this hour. But meanwhile, but it's the next day, but I won't say anything about that. So just to finish with a few seconds, where were we? Help me out.
I got distracted with New Zealand.
Exactly. Got me thinking about time zone.
And my brain went, oh, we have to smoke now.
Yeah. Well,
but we were talking about what you were going to do with...
yes, Doctors for Cannabis Regulation.
Yes.
Right. So,
what... Time out, guys. We got did y'all know that?
I'll give you
we're on it. It's time. Showtime. Take it, Mr. Chiles.
Yep. There it is.
It's your show now.
Yes. Woo.
Mr. Chiles, kick it off.
Good morning, everyone.
So just to finish my thought, so Doctors for Cannabis Regulation, when we flip the doctors, it's game over for prohibition. You know, we can have another discussion. I'd be happy to talk to you again, Josh, to finish this thought. But I would say the research or the money should be going into advocacy right now and then research.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time, everybody.
Hey, Dr. Nathan, I really, really appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
I'll ask one question. Do you think there's too much emphasis on attempting to find a magic pill with cannabis and other medicines, whereas there's a bit of a neglect to the therapy side that's required to assist it?
So, you know, the same thing goes for psychiatric medications. Is it enough to give somebody a pill and say, good luck and come back in 4 weeks and your depression should be better? We know that that helps. We also know that psychotherapy helps, but nothing helps so much as the synergistic effect of combining some kind of therapeutic agent, whether that's cannabis or Prozac or ayahuasca or LSD or psilocybin, with the one-on-one human connection that really gives context to the effects of the medication and helps people to understand that pills don't fix problems. Pills will help with, like a pair of glasses. It doesn't let you appreciate a good book or even teach you how to read. Lets you see the page clearly. And that's how we should be using them. But once we have the glasses, we need a good book.
That's understandable.
I'm so happy you said that, Doctor. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so, guys, we almost gaffed. I hope everybody lit up because we almost gaffed a whole 420, and that's not cool. What cities did we have? Where's my guy Mike at? Let me see what cities we had going on in there. Are we on U.S. time yet with these 420s?
We've just done.
We're still in Iceland.
Iceland, huh? Okay. Well, I feel a little bit better. Snap.
God bless Iceland.
You know what I'm saying? Guys, we're getting some great reach on this. That just means we had some great, valuable information. It's been dropping straight dimes since like early in the morning last night. It's I don't think it's going to stop either. It's crazy. It's nice. Josh, as always, just killing it. I got some brands. We gave away some free sponsorship this week, which that idea came to me out of nowhere. I just was in yoga and I was like, you know what? Small businesses, you know, I'm a retailer as well as a brand strategist. And so like on my retail side, I'm like, oh yeah, we got worked over harder than anybody. And so I should get back. So the small businesses, we established some time for them. And it was like, hey, we're going to, you can give me your fulfillment items. We'll give you some free advertisement, you know? And they're like, they started coming and we had to cut it off. But I definitely want to give them some time and some space because that's an important project to the heart. And it just keeps adding to the philanthropy, right? If you can just keep stacking philanthropy, I don't know what they call that. I'm going to call it a philanthropic stack. It's almost like a defense of some sort. Sounds like running zone, you know? But at this point in time, I'm going to shut the hell up and smoke real quick. So this goes out to, where are we at again?
Where are we at?
Yeah, we're traveling.
Okay.
We've been traveling.
Yeah, well, I'm on the East Coast of the U.S. and the only place I know that's 4 hours ahead of us is the great nation of Iceland.
Aren't y'all?
Hey,
isn't
Dr. Nathan, will you plug your social media? Anything you need to plug,
Yes.
Dr. Nathan, will you do that real quick?
Absolutely. I'm
Great.
easy to find at David Nathan MD on Twitter. That's where I hang out.
Okay.
On Twitter at David Nathan
I'll add
MD.
you right now.
Thanks so much, Josh.
Yeah,
And
man,
Doctor,
I'll be in touch,
are you doing any online sessions now? I guess you perhaps
That's all I'm doing.
right?
Yeah, I've gotten used to it. My first ever was a few weeks ago, and now I feel like I've been doing it forever. And it
Nice.
really does work. You know, people can see their doctors remotely, and I strongly advise that they do so when they have the need.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. So, Doc, it was great having you. Thanks for coming in, and we're probably look to have you back. We're going to be doing a couple of these because this is going to get pretty good for us, man. And we like this platform for you to give all the valuable information. Mary Lynn, Al, thank you very much for suggesting. And you know, she's an expert in her field as well as he. It's just all experts here. It's great. So cool. All right, we'll talk to you later,
guys.
Thanks very much,
Dr. Nathan.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye, Mary Lynn.
Yeah, last thing, David, I was just going to say, it probably is even better because you're seeing your patients in their environment. You know,
that actually is interesting. And I sometimes have patients bring in family photos and things like that. So you're correct. What it does lack is the intimacy of biological proximity and sitting across from somebody. And, you know, and even this camera, as I'm talking to you, the two of us are looking down just a little bit to see each other. So it's not quite the same eye contact, but I will say studies show that telepsychiatry, at least as far as evaluation goes, is effective and has the same outcomes as in-person meetings. So that's the reason that I'm comfortable doing this.
Awesome. Well, carry on.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you, guys.
Josh.
Hey.
Bye, everybody.
See you later.
So, Josh, I was thinking, that menu that you had, since we didn't do all of the interview, that first part of the interview you did yesterday with the panel, I was thinking maybe you should run that.
Okay.
After we get, I'm gonna announce these brands real quick. Let me see how many I got, but see if we can pull it up.
Shout them out.
Yeah.
And then, actually, you know what I can do? I'll add the link. Why don't you play it on your end?
All right.
If you don't mind.
I don't mind at all. That's a pretty sexy avatar you got back there behind you.
You know what? I love these virtual backgrounds. I've been rotating them just for fun. I get tired of looking at the same thing.
I'm in my shop. I just brought an actual background.
Oh, nice.
It's not virtual, so you know.
I like that.
Yeah, it's my favorite part of the shop for sure.
So I sent this to you. Here it is. It's in the doctor panel. Okay. I'm going to put it in the chat, and why don't you play it on your end?
Cool.
It's like an hour and a half long. This was pretty amazing, actually.
Yes.
The doctors did amazing.
I'm going to pull up these brands. You can start playing. I just don't want to start and stop it. So, yeah, I'll play it. In the meantime, could you reflect back on some of Dr. Nathan's talk? Because what were your favorite highlighted points out of there? Somebody's taking some bullet points or some notes.
Well, I just love the fact that he took a really honest approach towards the prescription, the medication, how it can aid. He was really realistic about the complexities of self-diagnosis, like I've done. I use myself as an example. So I really appreciated the fact that he was honest, and there was a really good healthy conversation between Mr. Byrne and him as well. So just bringing out different points. And the truth is, I don't think any of us are truly, we may have our own personal experiences with it. And I believe that with a medicine like this, it makes us all individually kind of experts for our own body. Because I wanted to say this to him. They call it practicing medicine because they're practicing medicine. They don't have it all figured out. They don't know everything. So in some way, even though they know they're more educated in the medical field, with a medicine like this that comes from the earth, I believe it's kind of like your relationship with God. I believe it's personal. It's not for anyone to tell you how to worship, how to do anything. I think cannabis is the same way. There's certain things to look out for. But to me, what I took away from this, it's a personal experience. You got to personally test it on yourself and see what works. And And fortunately, it's a safe enough plant that you can practice medicine on yourself to figure out what works. That's what I took from it.
Yeah, putting a little bit of efficiency inside of it, you know, even for stoners, you know, that like putting some efficiency inside of it to where you're literally tracking your own results is not hard. It's not difficult, you know. I feel like just with the track I took before I opened my shop, I was just on the road for, like I said, X amount of time. Just going from farm to farm, learning everything I could from, you know, the people that knew the information, doctors, farmers, merchants, just anybody high level, because I wanted to get a different class of information when I came back home, right? And when I had that, and I had applied knowledge, so knowledge from, you know, dosing several hundred, you know, people with CBD to giving out free stuff wherever I was at and noticing the results, and then coming back and noticing my own progression. Here we call it, like, you remember the Celia posturepedic beds that have the sleep number?
Yeah.
So we call it your CBD number, right? And so we're like, look, all you gotta do is find your CBD number, and you're gonna be great, man. You know, but and how you get there is all up to you. You know, there should be no polarization. You shouldn't feel bad about whatever. You just should be monitored as far as how you decide to step up. You know, you should step up the same way every time, and then sit back and take notes. You know, because after about 3 months, I stopped working at all. I had to mix my applications. So I like a little bit of hemp flower. I like my tincture. I like my water soluble, but I like both, right? So I like a tincture, like maybe 80 milligrams, and then I like 100 milligrams of water soluble. And I'm peachy keen. I'm like this, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's my day, you know? But a lot of people just, you know, it's costly to get there sometimes too with the regulations. And so I get it, but just taking notes of where you're at is good. I like that for sure.
Yeah. I put it in the chat room, brother.
Oh, did you? Sweet deal. Yeah. Okay. I'm getting in the meeting right now. You're going to have to let me in.
Hey, one thing I thought was really interesting was that science demands evidence and politics is only allowing anecdote. The whole circular thing about why there's no research and why we don't have evidence, you know, it's not being allowed.
You know, the WHO is actually a private organization, just so everybody knows. The WHO is a private for-profit organization. They are not government funded. They are not of the government, so they don't owe us nothing. The World Health Organization, the CDC, these are private organizations that are funded by private individuals. They expect profit in that board meeting, flat out period. If they come back like, hey, we cured some disease that lost us money.
The World Health Organization is funded by all the governments of the world. That's why Trump has just pulled out all of the American funding, because he disagrees with them.
Listen, we're not going to get political. But what we are going to do.
No, but the point is that the World Health Organization is funded by payments by all the governments of the world.
They're funded by grants provided by private organizations. But yeah, they are subsidies, but they don't come directly from the government. If they came directly from the government, Bill Gates wouldn't have so much interest inside of them financially, you know. Stop Bill if we get a chance, you know. That's all I'm going with, is stop Bill. I'm off of it. I'm done. But stop Bill. All right, here we go. I'm not going to say another word about it besides stop
funding the WHO, because my government thinks the WHO is doing a good job.
Do they?
I'm really unhappy about governments that think that withdrawing funding from the WHO during an epidemic, a pandemic, is a good idea.
Have you looked at Mr. Tedros lately? His whole career is he dodged cholera 3 times, or he covered up cholera 3 times. It's his whole career. Like, what have you done with your whole life? He's like, I covered up cholera 3 times. And that's his whole resume. And like, he's the president? Come on now. I don't think any of these organizations, not just the WHO, I don't think any of these organizations really make the efforts to have our best interests in mind. I mean, look what they've been feeding us from the 90s to the 80s, right? And now they're telling us that stuff's killing us. They through the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, like, they were shoving fast food down your throat. And now when the public gets aware enough, that's when they come out and start saying something, right? When the public has some hint, they're like, oh yeah, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad. But before that, they're pushing it several times, inaccurate information coming out. And the fact that they get a free stand every time you open up Facebook, every time you open up anything, it's got a big old WHO right across. Their damn logo's a target over the earth. I mean, it's a target over the earth. These guys here just, I don't trust government, so I could be biased, I could be wrong.
Of the planet, your government or the WHO?
Neither. They both need to go.
I can say one thing about the WHO. The good thing about WHO, is apparently last December or something, they declared 2020 to be the year of the nurse. So I got to give them credit for that one. And
that's great branding.
Which, if I can put another plug out to any nurses listening, after Patients Out of Time had our conferences going since 2000, by 2010, enough nurses realized that there was something going on here, that they said, a small group of us, we started the American Cannabis Nurses Association. So for any nurses out there, we'd be looking for more members and basically pushing the issue. Because in the United States, at least, nurses have been leading this a lot more stronger than the physicians. And I think a lot of it simply because we spend all our time with the patients. And you can see when they're sleeping better, when they're moving better, when they're clear-headed, it just works better. So it's an easy one for nurses. We can see it real easy. And I guess in the United States, the other plug for nurses is when they do the Gallup poll for the last, since 9/11, nurses come out the most trusted in the United States. And again, that's because we do spend a lot of intimate time with patients when they're very, very sick and at their worst.
Do the dirty work doctors don't do.
Yeah.
And that's actually a really good role.
No disrespect to doctors, by the way, but
no disrespect.
God bless our nurses.
Yeah, and especially for docs like Dr. Nathan, who listen to patients and believe them, as opposed to you're talking about cannabis, get out of my office, which still happens, unfortunately.
I'm the doctor. You listen to me. You take this medication. I don't like the way it makes me feel. Take it anyway.
Okay. Al and I are going to take a break now. We're going to be back at 4:20 Eastern time.
Okay.
And I'm signing off. I will see you at 1:30 Central time. God bless. Martell, thank you. Mrs. Byrne, thank you so much. Mr. Chiles, thank you. Appreciate it. Mr. Green, Tony, Gage, thank you.
Exit open.
Well, if these guys don't mind, can I just say?
Your mute's on.
Yeah, I think Al wants to say something.
Go ahead.
I can't hear anything.
Hello? Where'd he go? There he goes.
Yeah, he's got muted.
Yeah. How do you get muted?
I think Dakta went for a bit of a lie down. Getting late in the day for him.
I got him.
Yes.
It won't let me unclick them. I don't know. Al, can you hit that button in the bottom left? Can you hear me?
Doesn't look like it. Oh, yep.
Al,
Martell, were you talking to us?
Yeah, I was telling him to hit that. Okay, it's on now. Yeah, you can go ahead. We just didn't hear you before when you said you had something to say.
Al?
You said you had something to say.
Did you have something to say?
Did I have no? I didn't have something to say except Martell is doing a great job, and because he's doing such a great job, I'm going to come back and work with him again in a couple hours.
Oh, that's awesome, Blossom.
Excellent.
For sure. I still haven't got any sleep, I don't think.
Yeah, we've got thunder going right now. We're going to go check the dogs. We'll be back.
All right, see you in a bit.
Okay, take it easy.
Bye-bye.
So, Gary, just so you know, but everybody else is listening, We let me switch my view here. Actually, here we go. Who we got on? Is Dakta gone? He had a nap.
Yeah, he's having a sleep.
All right, good. So I'm going to take this time to actually shout out a few brands that we worked with. I'm sure you heard me saying earlier that we picked up some brand sponsorships that we did pro bono. And we also had some really cool brands that were sponsoring us, trying to get the word out. And I know there's a lot of events that were going down. And so we separated ourselves really in 3 ways. The first way was obviously we wanted to go around the world, right? Like everybody had a 4-hour event or 6-hour event with a bunch of musicians, but we didn't really see that convention style of festival that was kind of going on. And the fact that we brought both the light of that festival type of feel, but we've literally hit all these 420s, and we've had the quality of content that we've had on here, just from what 9 a.m. last night or 9 p.m. last night all the way through, and it still hadn't even got to the best footage yet. Besides Ben Drunkers, I mean that was amazing. But it put us in a separate platform, and so I think we wanted to get back to charity. So we linked up with 2. We have hand sanitizer ASAP, which they've been doing free hand sanitizer. It was a manufacturing plant, and they turned their chromatography lab into a hand sanitizer producer. They've been sending out millions of bottles, and so we're going to take part of the profits from those sponsorships, and we're going to buy a bulk amount. That way we can get them to where they need to go. PPEs I'm talking about. And so, and then secondly, we teamed up with, we teamed up with 2 more. We teamed up with Leaf 411, which is out of Colorado, and I'll let Sonia explain those when she gets on a little bit later, but they're the continued education firm we were speaking about earlier. And then we teamed up with a company called Vet CBD, and they are the go-to type of for formulations for pets, because they have different endocannabinoid systems than we do. I tell people this all the time. People are putting pet CBD on human CBD bottles and just wrapping it, you know? And it's like, I mean, it's not going to kill anybody, depending on what's in the CBD, but it's definitely not going to be the most effective for them, right? And I'm a pet guy. That's what I do. That's my thing. So I really like their platform for sure. And so we had a couple of other brands that really kind of stood out too. So I'm actually going to put the beginning part of Josh's interview on because it's just really amazing. And I'm going to get these in order and see if I can get the creative and get some of these people on here real quick. And so I'm going to throw that on. Actually, I'm going to throw some tunes on first because
okay.
I'm going to finish out that one jam because that was ridiculous. Those kids were good. All right. You having a good time, Gary?
Yeah. Hey, well, I'm getting to meet all my heroes and all the legends. All the people I've read about. You know? Serious.
Yeah.
They're all real legends. People and they're all talking to us.
Like, they're here. Like, it's crazy, you know?
Yeah.
Zoom is so cool right now. Like, this might be the best 420 ever.
No, seriously, this is swimming with the legends.
As a young activist, man, I think they really are giving some good direction too. As a young activist, they're like, we don't really work on principle right now. You know, like in America, people are working more off of convenience and there's not a sense of companionship there. They're starting to develop once we all been in the same house together, or houses, but it was forced. And so I take the silver lining out of this whole Corona thing and attribute it to the next step in humanity, this next level of consciousness. I think that we can see over the horizon now, you know, and cannabis plays such a big role in that. It's a big thing, you know.
It's quite bizarre that this enforced separation is what's going to make us more connected.
Yeah.
Weird.
No, it's how it happens. You get the opposite of what you want because people always want the opposite of what they get. Oh, I like that. I might write that down. I'll probably forget. All right. Oh, shoot. I also got something for you. I found what I was looking for earlier, too. This is just for you, Gary. This is my present to you for your 4/4/20. All right. And we lost our timekeeper, so I'm going to have to work on that. However, this is going to be really good. Join.
Yeah, I've got a little 3-minute 22 video I'll show you after when there's a gap.
Is it, are you guys at another event? Because those event videos were so cool.
This one was from when a friend of ours took a cannabis bomb to the Wellington Central Police Station for his birthday party.
I'll turn this off. There we go. All right. So what do you got? What are you gonna do the rest of the day? Your 420 is almost over.
Oh, I'm here all day. It's not over until we get to the end of the day, isn't it?
Until the fat lady sings. Here we go.
4:22.
She's not gonna say anything. Perfect.
Right.
All right.
I'm going to have to go and make myself a drink now.
What's up? You don't want to miss this.
Martell, what is going on?
Oh, God. That was quarantine at its finest. Who's it calling? Oh, I hate my life. All right. Go make yourself a drink. Crap over.
I'll hang around until it starts. Because otherwise I got to keep an eye on the volume here because there's people sleeping in this house.
What time is it there?
4:45 a.m.
All right. So I've been on this yoga kick for about a week now. And I'm crushing it.
Right, I'm going to go and get me a coffee.
All right.
I can't wait any longer.
All right. Great. Dakta's here. All right. So in the next half hour, we have Texas Normal. Shut up. Okay. In the next half hour, we have Texas Normal coming up. It's going to be Keith Stropp, the founder of Normal. Eric Altieri, he's the current executive director. And then from El Paso, we have Representative Joe Moody. who's been a big advocate in the fight since he's been in office, and so looking forward to hearing them speak. That's gonna be at 12:30. So like I said, up until then, we got a couple of acknowledgments that we need to do. So I'm just saying, if these people wrote me back, we'll wait till Gary gets in here, and then we'll crank this thing up. It's gonna be good to go. Happy 420. I hope I'm not missing one. Nope. 30 minutes.
All right, back again.
You back?
You got it.
Okay. So, Gary.
Yeah.
Can you send me that jacket?
Well, then it would, well, no, because it goes with the suit and the tie. Or it goes with the trousers and the tie.
Oh, you got the pants to it too?
This is almost my uniform. Whenever our parliament's in session, I make sure I'm in the public gallery, so they have to stare at me for an hour.
That's awesome. How often does your parliament meet?
Something like 30 weeks of the year. At the moment, it's all postponed.
Because of Corona?
I found out that the dress code in our parliament, if you've got a suit on, you can go anywhere. So I got me a suit so I can go anywhere.
That pretty much applies everywhere in the world, right? Anytime I have a suit on, I feel like I can just go anywhere, so I just do.
Yeah. But they won't let anyone into the public gallery of our parliament to wave a sign. You can't even have a slogan on your shirt. But I can wear this.
Well, that's cool. Do you guys do a lot of, is there a lot of hemp being farmed out there right now?
Sorry, no? What?
Is there a lot of hemp being farmed out there right now? I know you just opened up your CBD out there.
Well, all of our parliament's suspended at the moment. All of the MPs are doing meetings by Zoom. The regulations for the medicinal cannabis went live on April the 1st and nothing happened because everything's in lockdown. But there weren't any locally produced medicines available anyway because that comes after the regulations are formed. So we were expecting our first locally produced medicines by about April or May. That won't happen now.
And
so all of these delays are meaning that all the medicines that are available are only the imported medicines and they're really expensive.
Yeah, that's what they've been doing with Epidiolex. It's crazy how many people just switch to CBD. That's cool. You're going to charge me $10K for a medicine prescription. I'll just get the $6 generic. Very nice. What time is it? 11:52?
Yeah. About half an hour for 4:20.
Do you know who the next time zone is?
Hang on a moment. 2:23 p.m. It gets awkward at this juncture because I don't think there is anything at the next hour.
No?
I'm just looking.
Are we in the middle of the ocean somewhere? I'll smoke for the ocean. I don't mind supporting the ocean.
I'll back you on that one. I'll smoke for the ocean too, man.
Yeah, I knew it. I was like, somebody's got to support for the ocean. Just tell me what geographical location we're at, like latitude, longitude, lighten up.
Mid-Atlantic, but it surely must be Iceland or Greenland, one of the two. It must be going through there.
Tony, have you seen that big asteroid that they said was coming, I think in like June?
No, there was there's one happening at the moment. Tomorrow night apparently is the highlight. Well, we can see it from here, but I saw 2 or 3 like really amazing flame balls. When was it? About 3 days ago. Like amazing, full across the sky, like shooting stars.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like seeing cool stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I cannot get these people on. I guess they didn't try to promote that bad. All right, so Bet CBD, I'm just going to read their passage off so I can go ahead and get through it then if I can't get a hold of anybody. But they sent in the fulfillment item, so that works. That's all we requested. And we asked that you do a giveaway, so that's a thing. You boys can still hear me fine, right?
Yeah, you're a bit muffled.
All right. Tony, you finished with your work for the day?
I've still got a little bit to do, and then I've got another call on with the Cannabis Awards show at like about, I think, 4:20 Denver time.
Cannabis Awards show in Europe?
Yeah. In Colorado, I think.
Oh.
Okay, the next 4:20 is Solomon Islands.
Solomon Islands, yes. Is that it? That's the only thing in that time zone?
There might be more.
No, it can't be. Solomon's in the Pacific, isn't it?
Yeah. Between.
But we should be in the Atlantic somewhere now.
After about 15
no, I'm talking about the AM. There's no PM.
PM.
There's no PM 420 that I can find. Hang on.
Okay.
Oh, hang on. Yeah, middle of the Atlantic. What's that one?
Greenland.
Yes. You can come on Family Feud with me at any time.
Or is it Iceland? One of the two. It's that big off the top of Canada, that big hold on. Let me just see.
That's gotta be Iceland, right? Iceland's green and Greenland's cold.
I'm trying to work off a map, but it's not helping me.
This
website I'm working on isn't so good.
Okay, so
what's that one?
Oh, we got to, yes, hopefully that's one of the sponsors.
256. What's that one down there? 257.
Like, man. And I'm going to give away about a half pound of hemp flowers too. Matter of fact, I'll do that first. So my platform is opening up. It's been open for a minute. Tony, you actually did the first podcast on my platform.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, and so I was really happy about that. But there's a couple of things I want to point out. First of all, Diane Oliver, award-winning director and filmmaker, died earlier this year. And definitely wanted to send a shout out to her because I did Richard Rose. I did like a 3-part blog with Richard Rose, Dr. Rosado, and her. And I just emailed them out something and they wrote me back a written return to put inside of a blog. And she died a few days later, and I think that was like the last interview she got, like that anybody got with her, And I was pissed because I was going to follow up and I didn't get a chance to, so it's kind of been that empty feeling or whatever. But I've always heard from the research I've done after, she's just been a dynamic lady, so I wanted to give her a shout out. Similar like how you gave Charlotte a shout out. I feel like she's a real pioneer. And so I'm going to get rid of a bunch of hemp flower here right after I get done with these, just because I don't need all this hemp flower. So first of all, I want to give a shout out to, we'll start at the base here. So Leafly Therapy and Massage Therapy out of Houston, Texas. Leafly has been around for actually quite some time, and she's hit me up yesterday. She's got a yoga studio as well too. But smaller brand, been hit by COVID pretty hard, like a lot of these small businesses have, and they just ran out of money, so they can't even get the small business stimulus now until they refill. And so, any love that gets thrown at these guys. Now they don't have a giveaway here, but I'm assuming that means they got a fat discount. But I'm gonna actually post this on the thread here, and then we'll just play it like that. All right.
I found an anomaly on why you can't find the next 420.
What's that?
So Greenland does have a part that belongs to Denmark and a part that is Greenland on the island or the continent, the land that is Greenland. But it's a 2-hour time difference. So the part on the right of Greenland that belongs to Denmark, or is it, I think, a Danish, maybe it's not, but it's to Danish time, is already 5 p.m. and the rest of Greenland is only 3 p.m. So there's no 420 on any landmass. So we're in the middle, we're crossing the Atlantic.
All right. I don't like that. We don't get to smoke then, you know? So I don't know what happened. Such a disappointment.
Yeah, I would, you know who you could dedicate the next one to?
Who's that?
Because right now, there are a lot of, I know a few of them, there are a lot of yachts people stuck on boats during lockdown in various parts of the world where they can't come ashore. You're like, look, I mean, they're used to being stuck on their boat, but obviously it's a little bit different when you can't go sailing. You just sat at anchorage. So what about all the sailors and fishermen and yachts people out there? And then also, as you said, for the ocean.
Lost at sea and for the ocean all day.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, we can do that. We'll shed some light on the situation, Tony. And so, what do you got on the woodworks? We haven't seen each other, like I said, in a while. I know we've been locked down. But as soon as you get off of this COVID lockdown, what are you going to be doing? What's next on the plate?
All right, he's speaking to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so basically, it's harvest time up in Lesotho, so busy, making sure that the product's going to come off, with a small team there, and that it will then be processed, and then obviously getting it into various markets, and really pushing hard as we build up towards September in South Africa, which is the limit that the government has got, the parliament has got to change the laws in South Africa. So making sure that the laws that they do enact are rational, science-based, human rights-based, and really help unlock this green economy in South Africa. And the region. I mean, we look in Malawi has passed legislation in their parliament now to legalize for industrial and medical use. Zimbabwe, I think Kenya is looking at it. Mswatini, which is used to be called Swaziland, they're also considering. So this whole region is about to light up. But one of the things that I'm pushing for hard, and I think post-COVID, it's going to be an easier conversation, is that we cannot rely anymore on value chains that are built around relationships across the world. We in South Africa should not be buying CBD grown in Canada or America, and we shouldn't be getting rice from Thailand, and we shouldn't be getting maize from Brazil, and all of these things we're seeing. Hold on, we need to go back to being self-reliant, more local, supporting local value chains, not maybe traveling so much and spreading things all around the world. Let's take the opportunity to learn the lessons that we've learned, and you can follow COVID, followed flight paths. I've been an amazing privilege of traveling a lot over the last few years, but in essence, it's heavy on the environment. It's heavy on ourselves now. We're seeing the impact for spreading things around the world. So let's really use the opportunity to devise systems again, which are built more around local supply systems. South Africa needs to, the first thing they're looking at is they're suddenly going, okay, we're going to license cultivators, we're going to license farmers in the rural areas, and then they can export this product because everyone wants South African cannabis all over the world.
Yeah,
I'm telling them that's a lie. You're like, Canada's full, America's full of weed. No one's going to come and suddenly, if South Africa harvested 100 tons of cannabis and looking for a legal market next April, who's going to come and pay all those farmers? If we don't have a local market, we don't have local outlets, if we don't, can't supply locally, we'll run into the same system that Oregon's run into, same problems of just oversupply, farmers losing their farms, glut of product, and then also it will head straight into the black market, which again, you know, they'll say, you see, we shouldn't have legalized this. You're like, because now look, it's all, you know, the gangs are making money or whatever. So we're really pushing hard to make sure that the government sees to rely on some magical international market to come and snap up the products. First of all, it's outdated already. Second of all, it means that it excludes most of the small scale farmers, most of the traditional farmers, people who can't meet GAP or GMP standards. So we really have to push for a local industry, whether it's, as I said earlier, based on health, and there is a doctor or a health practitioner or a traditional healer in place. You know, in South Africa, we have about 80,000 Western medical doctors and about 500,000 traditional healers who can be trained on how to at least you know, vet people for any potential risks, as well as distribute in, you know, to those that need it. And they have been using this medicine forever. You know, it's part of the protocol.
That's the basic of the medicine.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I just say, the other thing that's really important about local production and local consumption is that everybody in the local community that's growing puts their love into the plants. And if the plants are consumed locally, that love is kept within the community.
Yes. Oh, that's nice.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, just our company, Hemporium, you know, when we started in 1996 and we started bringing fabric from the East, and then we learned more about hemp food, and then we were getting seeds from Canada, and then we were getting oil from Germany, and then we got into hemp building, and we got building materials from UK, from a mattress factory there, and never 25 years on nearly, did we dream that we would still be having to import from all those places. It's just madness. You know, definitely the hemp industry has to be local. You have to have your small scale processing equipment to be able to, the farmers to access something, you know, some beneficiation, which will then move on to a centralized processing hub. But this idea of us all having to rely on Chinese for textiles, you know, like that should be made close to us again. We need to revitalize all of these industries. Hopefully the skills are still alive. You know, there's still people who understand how to take, you know, like, because what happened with globalization, we all shipped our skills and our understanding of those value chains offshore.
Yeah, the economy,
it's not going to be a scramble to bring them back.
Well, who's going to profit again? The Chinese, because they're going to sell us all our textile machinery.
Exactly.
As long as they're not selling us both, I'm fine. It's funny, giving that global sense of community back, you know, is a thing. You know, we used to travel around in packs of 150 to 175 when we were at our most efficient as humans, right? Because you can get enough depersonalization to feel like you're still in a bigger matrix, but the decision making was held within the community. And I think that, you know, as dreamy as that is, you know, it sounds super like a dream state. And I'm a capitalist, so it's really hard for me to wrap my head around. But it's a necessary evil, right? Like, you know, I don't want to dive too deep in that socialism thing, but I definitely want to be in a spot to where the huge government's not controlling what I do and my regulations of what I say, because they just don't have any compassion. They have no empathy, you know? And so if you look at the numbers, like on Small Business Saturday this year, we did like 40% bump. Anytime you spend money in your community, 60% of that money goes back to your community, in your local economy, right? But when you start shopping at, you know, McDonald's and anybody else is trying to kill you, then you know, not only are you suffering health-wise, but you're suffering from these people like literally trying to murder your local community. And with the Fed bumping all this money back in, I literally saw a sign the other day that said entrepreneurs that are suffering from COVID disaster, Amazon's hiring, and some big store, Amazon and Walgreens are hiring. I'm like, what? You think I'm working at a fucking box store? Like packing shelves? Like, that's not going to happen. Like, there has to, no, sir. But they want everybody working at Amazon doing deliveries or whatever the hell, so they can just make this whole thing corporate, you know? And it's really kind of disgraceful. It's insulting to our intelligence, too. And they're getting us so used to it. They sit at home and order stuff for a while and then watch the news. And we'll holler back at you in a month when you're scared shitless.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. What time is it, Gary? 12:08. Okay, we're good.
5:08. Yep.
Yeah.
Gary, have you gone all the way through the night?
Yep.
Yep. How are you feeling?
Pretty good. I was up pretty much the same amount of time last night because it was bicycle day.
I see.
And I'm pretty much not doing
What's bicycle day? Like,
you're looking good for the marathon.
Yeah, no, this is when I'm normally awake anyway. It's only things like going to Parliament that gets me out of bed early.
That's awesome.
Martell asked you what's bicycle day.
Oh, sorry, I was concentrating on filling my pipe. Bicycle day. Bicycle Day is the anniversary of Dr. Albert Hoffman's first intentional LSD trip in 1943, where he dosed himself with LSD at exactly 4:20 p.m. on the 19th of April. Felt a bit weird and had a bike ride home.
What?
It's,
I thought,
it's
did
become
we
a
talk about this earlier?
journey of legend.
Did we talk about this earlier?
Yeah.
Okay, I remember now.
But that's why I'm on this sort of time zone thing at the moment. Partly because I don't have to get up to go into town to go to Parliament because there's no Parliament.
It's tradition.
Because it's a good time to be awake. This is how I keep an eye on the other side of the world.
All right. So we know where we're going. We know what we're doing. Are you gonna donate? Do you guys have yoga mats, Tony?
Yeah.
You do? I need to buy one of those yoga mats. This is just a side note here.
Okay.
Like my yoga's getting pretty decent. So.
I thought you were gonna make me get down and do some 420 acrobatics.
Oh, that'd be so dope. No, I've been trying to show this video. I can't figure out how to show this damn video, but I got a really good
one. One of you standing on your head. I'm not doing that.
Yes. Yoga battle real quick. Do you do any yoga? I know you do some meditation.
I do yoga, but mostly I like yin yoga, really slow yoga, holding poses for a while. Okay. Yeah. And I do my own, I do quite a lot of Qigong.
What's that?
Qigong's like predates Tai Chi on Chinese martial art, but mostly around breathing and moving energy internally. But there are external movements, but it's about harnessing your Qi, your energy, but mostly through breath.
Breath work is the shit. I got this new book called Harnessing Breath Work. But breath work is amazing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what the planet's doing at the moment, is taking one really big breath. You can feel it. Yeah. You know, like I saw some photos from some family who live in the UK, and you must see that I've never seen photos of London with the sun looking so bright. Yeah. You know, like usually London is covered with contrails from all the planes, and maybe worse if we believe that's that vibe. But you know, like there's always a haze in the sky, and there's beautiful blue bright skies in London, and you're like all over the
like
world.
That too right now. LA's like that, and then they saw what is it, coyotes on the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, we've in one of our little coastal towns, the penguins have taken over, man. They've got free range through the town. And you're like, nature's taking this deep breath, and breath work is incredibly important, because most of the time these days we're living under such heightened awareness and edginess because of the amount of information that we're having to process all the time. We can't actually take a breath. You know, you're constantly adrenalized. So yeah,
our whole species.
Yeah, it's one of our core facets of being human, you know, being a mammal, is that we take oxygen in and breathe, and very few people are doing that properly these days. We breathe a fraction of the amount that we should. And yeah, again, job bless cannabis for being a bronchodilator and opening our lungs. And it's one of the things when they had the doctors on that I wanted to say, but the guy did tell us he didn't like being disturbed in his interviews early on. But you know, one of the, sorry, Martell, can you make my video begin? Because I think I'm still in waiting room. But anyway.
Okay.
Purgatory. But one of my understandings of how cannabis works on a medical side that's not really measurable, but is here, is with the opening or stimulating of the postsynaptic feedback system, that it helps our brains get better feedback from the body. When I smoke, one of the first things that happens to me is I get told to breathe. Yeah. Oops.